Hello again. As promised, here is part 2 of me ranking all of the United States that I've been to by physical beauty. Here, in part 2, I'm going to go through the remaining states that I've visited and tell you whether I think they're hot or not. Today's video is produced in partnership with Rosetta Stone. Start your language journey today. Quick reminder, if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, do that now. In the meantime, let's start another flame war in the comments section. Missouri. I didn't know much about this place until visiting, but that does call to mind my first visit, which also provided my first ever sighting of the Mississippi River. It's big, brown and wet, and that is not a reference to this morning after breakfast. That is just my observation of the river. But, you know, it has its charm nonetheless, because this is a river that is iconic. It's wider than some rivers are long, and it's worth pointing out that Missouri is also where a river that's longer than the Mississippi starts, and that river is the Missouri River, which is a bit unoriginal in terms of names. And I've seen both rivers, and that makes it hard for me to rank this low. But those big things literally make it look decent in warm lighting. Missouri, for that reason and that reason alone, ranks higher than Massachusetts and Connecticut. I might have messed this list up. My word. Oh, and speaking of words, I've always had a thing for language, and not just words, but the many ways in which we express them. So it was only inevitable that I'd get in on the language learning craze at some point. I just never imagined that Spanish would be the language in question. After all, British schools tend to lean toward German or French. But after moving to the United States, I quickly learned that Spanish is the country's second most common language. So why not broaden my horizons by learning a language I might actually use? And that is where Rosetta Stone comes in. Rosetta Stone is immersive. I'm not just memorizing flashcards, I'm seeing, hearing and thinking in the language. And even when I don't get it right, their true accent speech recognition gives me instant feedback with the help of native speakers on my pronunciation. I don't just say lo siento, I say lo siento. Lessons are bite-sized, just 5 minutes, and the audio companion lets me practice while I'm outside with the dogs who are picking up the language themselves. Buenos burritos! Whether you're prepping for travel, reconnecting with heritage, or buckling up for a Nordic noir movie, this is the tool to use. My Uncle Tim used to say that learning a language was the best way to expand your horizons. And just because he wasn't speaking from experience doesn't mean he was wrong. You can get over 60% off a lifetime subscription to Rosetta Stone. Unlimited access to all 25 languages. One payment, lifetime access. The link is in the description. Or you can scan the QR code on the screen. New Hampshire, which again was part of that journey through northeastern states. But I did get the chance to spread my legs in New Hampshire, not like that, and go for a little wander. And somehow, at some point, my ex and I ended up near a mountain. The mountain in question was Mount Washington. This was perhaps my first experience of a mountain in America. You climbed Mount Washington? No, I just watched it from a road. Nonetheless, it was nice, and I think that has piqued my interest in the state, and I think I'd have to put this under strong potential. New Jersey. I almost didn't include this because I think there are going to be people from New Jersey who will contest whether I've been to New Jersey. And that's because the way I visited New Jersey was by going to Ellis Island, most of which is in New Jersey. People might hear this and think, Lawrence, you're an immigrant. You've been to Ellis Island. When did you move here? 1894? No, I arrived here through Air Canada. I was visiting as a tourist, and since that's all I've got to go on, the island itself was fun, if mostly man-made. If so, can't really be sure if I can judge scenery of New Jersey. I wouldn't say it was instantly forgettable, because you're surrounded by water. It's certainly not Indiana, but it also didn't look decent in warm lighting, because it was freezing that day. I can't think it has a strong potential. So I think New Jersey, you're going to get 5 out of 10. And then there's New York across the way. And you've got to keep in mind here that New York isn't just a city. A lot of people think it is. It's a whole state, but I've only been to the city. So this is another one that's quite hard to judge. Though I will say this, Manhattan Island, when whatever natural processes came about to form that, it did a brilliant job for property developers. And then you got all those people who tell me, Lawrence, you need to check out upstate New York. That's where the real action is. And because I'm aware of that, and because I'm frightened of New Yorkers, I can't put this low. I think it looks decent in warm lighting. In fact, my friend Frank is a New Yorker and he's in a live chat with me right now. I think it has strong potential because of the Catskills, because of the autumn foliage, because of Niagara Falls, Nope, Frank says that's rubbish. Ohio. I don't know where to put this, because in some respects, the further east you get, it starts teasing the Appalachian Mountains. But for a lot of it, it's very Indiana. Like, you wouldn't know that you'd crossed the border until you realise that the roads are better. It's just more fields and barns and a great lake on top. So, sorry, Ohio, you are Indiana. I've just realised how confusing that is. But I feel sorry for Ohio in a way, because like next door to it is Pennsylvania, and this is where things really get interesting, because I've been through that state. In many ways, it was a lot like the shirt that I'm wearing right now. Green and hilly. I could not take my eyes off it. It just seemed like miles and miles of going over one hill and coming over and seeing 28 more. And I would say that since I did see a big chunk of the state, I think for me, the wow factor is so high that I would have to give this a North American 10. I mean, I might have given it the same ranking just for entering Pittsburgh alone. People don't tell you about Pittsburgh. It is a wonderfully situated city. You got 3 rivers that pull your line of sight into the skyline, which you see from the top of a mountain. Pennsylvania is proof of what happens when Lawrence visits more than just a small percentage of a state. So there's hope for the rest of you yet. Tennessee felt like an extension of Kentucky, at least what I saw, in terms of its hills, trees, and distilleries. To be fair, I've only seen the northern part coming into Nashville, but it seemed nice. I've heard good things about the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. It looked decent in warm lighting to me. I'll be honest, I didn't have a great time in Utah, and that's partly because it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit every day, and also because I was stung by a bee. But I can't deny the fact that it really takes care of its appearance. I flew into Salt Lake City, thought we were going to crash, because apparently the pilots do this thing where they just turn, you're looking at the mountains. Just Salt Lake City alone, once you're at the top of whatever that mountain was called, is unlike anything I've experienced. And believe me, I've been to Stockport. And I would say that in addition to the mountainous nature of Salt Lake City, you also have the Great Salt Lake itself. Nobody told me until I was flying over it. This thing is split in half. One is one colour and the other is another. And that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It almost certainly would be a North American 10 if I'd seen more of the state, but I haven't. So at this point, just like California, it goes into the strong potential category. I think the same can possibly be said of Virginia. I've stayed in a town called Grundy, Virginia, which again has mountains that are competing for size with the local Walmart, and I've also been to George Washington's house at Mount Vernon, and while I found the house tour to be a little bit overrated, the ride along the Potomac River was horrifying because the waters there were choppier than my edits. So I think given the 2 things I've seen and knowing what else I haven't seen, I think this has to come under the strong potential category. Washington. On a technicality, I've been there twice. Once to the Spokane area, and also I had a change at Seattle Airport, and I've got to say the Puget Sound is very eye-opening. But whether I was there or in Spokane, one thing that stood out to me was all of the Douglas firs. And this is a type of tree that you see all over Washington and Idaho. And I don't know, I like them. Why? Because I'm a man in my 40s now, and these are things I care about. Washington, you have strong potential. By marriage, I have family in West Virginia, so this entry will be biased. West Virginia is a bit like a smaller version of Pennsylvania. As I pointed out in a recent YouTube short, it is in fact, per square mile, the hilliest state in America. The only thing I would say about it is that unlike Pennsylvania, it's completely landlocked. So you've got no huge bodies of water. Maybe it loses points for that? I don't know. I can't really put it under looks decent in warm lighting. I already know that strong potential is the wrong thing because I've seen much of the state. I think it is a North American 10. And finally, Wisconsin, which is just north of where I am, so I'm going to have to be careful about what I say. That said, it's quite difficult to do that because I've only been to Milwaukee and the Renaissance Fair in Bristol. There's not a lot going on in that area of the world. You do have the lake, and I know that the Wisconsin Dells are beautiful because I've been to the Wikipedia page, but the bits that I've seen just look like an extension of Illinois and Indiana and Ohio. So Wisconsin, for now, you're going to have to be ranked under Indiana. And those are all of the states that I've been to. Let me know in the comments how correct I am. And here is part 1. You'll watch that video next. Until the next video, goodbye.